it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to our second feasibility call for Sustain. I'm just going to introduce the project for those of you who are on the call who might not be familiar with what we are and what we do. And then we'll pass over to some colleagues who will give some information about how the call is going to work and what the scope is. And somewhere in the middle there, I think we're going to hear from one of our previous successful feasibility call recipients who will talk a little bit about what that project has done for them and how it's helped them in terms of integrating with the steel industry and taking their research forward in these areas. Okay, so just a little bit about where we came from in Sustain. And before I start, I'm just going to give the little caveat that my kids' nursery is closed today. So if they do burst in the background, you're just going to have to bear with me. But I've given them strict instructions not to do that. So hopefully that won't happen. So Sustain. So Sustain stands for the Strategic University Steel Technology and Innovation Network. Always spend a long time thinking about your anagrams and things. So where did it come from? So we started, I guess, in around 2016. Or maybe even slightly earlier than that, when the steel industry in the UK had started to fragment. So some of the bigger companies had split up into smaller companies. And what meant at that point was that there was a lot of fragmentation of the industry, and a lot of the research capability that sat in and around the industry became less and less well coordinated. And around that time, the steel companies were looking to try and work with UK government to try and pull together what they were calling a steel sector deal. And as part of that, we worked together between academia and industry to pull together a broad technical scope that tried to address some of the key challenges that were coming down the track for the industry. And we used that as a basis for Sustain. So before we even submitted the bid, we ran some cross-industry and academic workshops to try and refine those priorities and look at some of the longer-term challenges that would fit within the remit of a fundamental research program, and eventually pulled together the hub proposal, went through evaluation, and eventually were successful. And since then, we've been running for coming up towards 3 years. So, Becky, can I have the next slide, please? So this whole program is really based around some key principles. So the vision really is that we want to deliver an academic leadership for steel within the UK, and that doesn't mean that we're trying to dictate what happens in terms of the research that's required to support the steel industry, but just means that we're trying to provide a little bit of convening power for all of the different people who are interested in contributing that, and also to attract new people to come and interact with the steel industry to solve some of the key problems that we face from a fundamental research perspective. That we hope feeds into the development of a 21st century workforce to support the industry. And we want to, of course, deliver carbon neutrality, and that's one of the key elements of or deliverables of the Sustain program, and one of our key targets. And was only marginally, I suppose, before its time in terms of the focus of the research proposal, because now there are an awful lot of large critical mass EPSRC funded activities that look to do that. And that would develop a sustainable footprint or foundation for the industry, which you could then exploit to develop new processes and new products. We want to become internationally leading in research and scale up by 2030. We want to increase employment in the steel industry in up to 2030. So that's kind of the people part of this. We're looking for carbon neutrality in steelmaking within the UK by 2040, and we're looking to double the steel-related GVA in the UK economy by 2030. And then finally, we really want to help in terms of collaboration. So we're trying to foster collaboration, and that's a big part of what these feasibility studies are looking to try and deliver. We want to develop open innovation. So we want people to collaborate openly, share ideas, because we need to move at an exceptionally high pace to deliver what's required for the steel industry down the track. We want steel making that's fit for a healthy and resilient nation. So we want to be able to deliver a sustainable steel industry that's going to benefit the wider society. And probably one of the more important ones is that we're looking at responsible innovation. So that means considering in the development of our technical scope and the technical solutions to some of the steel industry's problems, what that's going to mean for the people and the future skills requirement for the industry moving forward, so that we have the people to deliver those technologies in a holistically stable way. Next slide, please, Becky. So just to give you an idea of what we look like at a glance, the hub of Sustain is at Swansea, with two of the initial spokes at the University of Sheffield and the University of Warwick, and that's been expanded to additional activities at Durham University, UCL, and Cardiff University, and you'll hear more about that later on. So that was via our first round of feasibility funding. We're supported by the major steel manufacturers and producers in the UK, who are completely integrated into the running of our program. So they're not just sort of arm's length stakeholders, but they're completely integrated into the way that the program runs. And that means that we have exceptionally strong links with those industries. And, you know, for those of you who are interested in applying to this call, we should be able to help you facilitate with interaction with those companies if those are links that you don't already have. Thinking about how we deliver on those fundamental research challenges, we're driven by two grand challenge research areas, one in carbon neutrality and zero waste, and one in smart processes for smart products. And we're looking at the pathway to manufacture for these technologies in the long run via interaction with a series of innovation partners who work at those slightly higher TRLs. Can you move along, please, Becky? So just to give you an idea of where we sit in the whole context of innovation funding and research and innovation funding across the UK. So we're one of the largest critical mass activities in the UKRI portfolio as far as EPSRC are concerned. So we're a long-term program running over 7 years. And that's what we're trying to use, that stability, to try and build that convening power and expand the community of researchers who are contributing to the steel industry. There are other programs that sit in this space that we're affiliated to, like the Made Smarter Research Centre, focused specifically on materials, the Transforming Foundation Industries clusters as well, such as the EPSRC supported Network Plus and Transfire activities supporting the wider foundation industries. And what we're trying to do is use those to lever those responsive mode and investigator-led proposals. And so one of the things that we're looking for out of this feasibility study is to try and generate more of that investigator-led activity. So you using your ideas and us providing the conduit to industry to give you a bit of context on how to focus some of those things you're doing. And then the industry can take those forward up towards TRL 9 through Innovate UK and ultimately the Department of Business, Environment, Energy and Industrial Strategy. So can you move along, please, Becky? So where are we now? Where have we got to from that starting point? We have 53 staff working in Sustain, 3 core universities and 3 new spokes, as I mentioned earlier on. Lots of co-investigators, researchers, PhD staff, and the core team, and many of whom you see on the screen today, who are incredibly important in delivering this program successfully. We're starting to crank out the research outputs now. We run lots of events to try and increase our engagement, and we're also running through Becky, who you can see on the screen here, a quite intensive outreach campaign to try and encourage more people to enter STEM in general, but obviously with a steel flavour in particular, because we recognise the challenges, the demographic challenges that exist from the industry to maintain sustainability moving forward. So can you move along, please, Becky? So the research, how is it organised? We have these 2 grand challenge research areas that I referred to earlier on. And then sitting somewhere below that, we kind of have 5 main themes. One is around emissions management, utilisation, zero waste steelmaking, data-driven innovation, smart low energy production, and new processes for new products. And we have a series of tasks through these. And some of these are delivered by our core partners at Sheffield, Warwick and Swansea. And some of these are delivered by our new partners that are coming through the feasibility study. And what you can see here is that they're not arm's length, they're actually integrated into the program. These groups will come along, they get involved with the companies directly, they integrate with the program, they attend all of our conferences and present at our conferences, and they're a completely integrated part of the partnership. And so anybody who's looking to apply for this in the future will be doing that too. Those tasks out of interest are 11, 12, and 10. Okay. So you can kind of see that there's a very broad range of different areas, and you'll probably see that reflected in the scope that's going to be described as we move on through today's session. So if you want more information on these different themes, then you can find those on Sustain's website. And I recognize you can't click those on the screen, but I think Lydia is dropping those links into the chat there. There's a lot of information on our website, and there you'll also find copies of our 3 annual reviews that we've published to date, and they'll give you an idea of how the program is progressing and the sorts of things that we're already doing. And I guess keep in mind that when you're thinking about submitting proposals to our feasibility study, because obviously we're looking for the types of proposals that are going to be complementary to the activities that we're already doing. So why do you want to join and apply? Well, hopefully I'm already starting to make a good case for this, but we're a critical mass activity and we're looking to support people. So this isn't about owning the field. This is about supporting more and more people to engage with the steel industry because they have more problems than we have the capacity to solve or the expertise to solve as well. So we're looking for those new complementary entrants into our cluster, and we want to try and support those people to deliver impact for the steel industry, and also, you know, deliver scientific benefits for the wider community and help themselves in their own careers as well. We're looking to try and we can provide very strong industrial engagement for those people who are interested in applying. We have a role in impacting policy and future funding environment as well. We very recently gave both written and oral evidence to one of the environment committees for UK government, and have had influence on some of the climate change committee activities around the future targets for UK government. So we're able to take the results of some of the things that could be happening as a result of the second feasibility call and feeding it into that activity. So we will be calling on people to try and contribute to that. And that's a good impact case for you and your research. We'll be able to provide access to facilities across the core group. There's a lot of facilities that exist between Sheffield, Warwick and Swansea to support the steel industry if there are things that you need that you don't necessarily have access to yourself. And we have access to flexible and follow-on funding. And we've supported a lot of people and a lot of proposals that have come from some of our previous feasibility funding to go on and take their research forward. So hopefully there's a lot of good reasons why this is an attractive proposition. Moving on. So the previously funded feasibility studies, again, Lydia's dropped a link in here. You can find more information on these on the Sustain website in detail. But there was one from Durham University, which is looking at very high temperature, reliable electronic equipment. And they did a lot of useful simulation work there to help them design devices. There was a techno-economic feasibility of net zero emissions. And I think we're going to hear more about that from Yukin himself in a second. So I won't talk too much about that one. And a drop tube furnace investigation to look at novel reductants, and that's looking at how we can try to displace fossil fuel carbon in the steelmaking process, an incredibly important part of the transformation of the industry. And that was from Julian Steer at Cardiff, who's now formed very, very strong links with some of the researchers within Sustain, and those continue to flourish into the future. So you can find more information about those on the website. And I think now you're going to hear from Yukin specifically about what his project was and how he has benefited from his involvement with the feasibility studies from our first round.
Hello everyone, apologize. I couldn't make this presentation live due to other commitments. I'm Yukun Hu, an associate professor of infrastructure system at UCL, and also one of the 3 awardees of the Feasibility Study 1. I'm glad to be here to share my experience in the Feasibility Study 1. However, first and foremost, what I want to say to prospective applicants of the Feasibility Study 2 is that it was definitely a very rewarding experience and will continue to benefit you beyond the end of the project. Why do I say that? That's because, first, my project application had the support and attention of systems from their investigators to admin coordinators. What especially benefited me was the series of events system organized, such as the Sandpits workshop, where you can discuss your idea with experienced industry partners and academics to identify the TRL of the technology you focus, and whether your proposed research fits well with the scope of the core and how your research contribute to certain targets and KPIs. So I strongly recommend you following the update of certain social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, and newsletter. More importantly, for earlier career researchers, if you are anxious about industry support, System could help you establish connections with industry partners through their broad networks. If you are lucky enough to be an awardee pilot, you will become a member of System Consortium. During the project, you will benefit from System's strong project management team and also dissemination platforms. Take me as an example. System is the matchmaker for my follow-up project with British Steel on industrial fuel switching. In addition, as I mentioned before, the end of the project is not the end of the collaboration. My project was finished in last November, but I continue to get support from System, and I'm invited to participate in events System organized. For example, with their support, one of my research proposals was successfully funded by EPSRC through TFI Network Plus. And I recently participated in System annual task update meeting in Swansea. Due to the time limit, I can't elaborate my experience in more details here, but I would be pleased to discuss further with you offline. So, what you are waiting for? Think about your ideas. Draft a proposed research proposal. Submit it. That's all. Thank you very much for your listening. Hope this helps.
A very much more direct version at the end there from you, Ken, and really helpful. So there's a summary here of some of the activities that happened in some of the other projects and really what they helped to enable. So it's really there's the wider opportunity. So of course we're very interested in the output of this research, and we'd like to remind you, of course, as you might expect for an EPSRC proposal, we are looking specifically in terms of criteria at scientific quality and novelty primarily. But of course there are all of the wider benefits of being involved in this program, and we are there to support. I mean, Euken said he finished in November, but if you can want support from us in 2 years' time, we'll be here to provide that. And so, you know, it really is about trying to help people engage with the industry and develop their research ideas that are going to benefit the industry. And with that, I think I'm going to hand over to our project manager, Richard Curry, who's going to provide a little bit more detailed information on the call.
Right, thanks for that, Cam. Okay, so getting to the sort of the nitty-gritty of the technical side, of course, we need the feasibility study proposals to line up with our grand challenges. So, you know, there they are on the screen. I guess Cam had already gone through them in a little bit of detail, but, you know, the main challenges are carbon neutral iron and steel making and the smart steel processing. Both go hand in hand. And, you know, we need both to ensure that we do decarbonise steel in the future. And the idea is with the feasibility studies that that you can put a proposal in and, you know, contribute to that in a meaningful way. Next slide, please, Betty. So we have several subcategories that we've broken it down into, that you'll see from the forms for the call. And in this particular case, we're looking for, I think it's is it 6 key areas, 5 and then 1 general area. So we're really focusing on waste material flows, and I just want to stress these have got to be low TRL. They've got to be step change type things. It's got to be thinking big. So, you know, we need to really focus on novel applications for plant byproducts. I'm not going to call them wastes, because you know, these chemicals and gases that come from the plant do have potential other applications. We shouldn't think of them as wastes, and we should think of them as opportunities to make other products or to feed other industries. This yet again goes hand in hand with industrial symbiosis. So will the steel plant in the future look like it does now? Will it be a hub of lots of different industries all working together? We don't know. In an ideal world, you know, we would have that. We would have zero waste, and we'd have lots of different compatible industries all working together. And that's, you know, a big part of what we want to pull forward from this. With it being a feasibility study, obviously we can test that within a small container and ensure that you know, that we can bring the idea forward, and then hopefully, you know, all of these ideas could potentially go on to form further projects and bring, you know, the potential academics, universities into Sustain a lot more closely to work together. So next slide, please, Becky. Energy obviously is a big one, and we're not just focusing on you know, electricity and gas. It's all the energy vectors, and we've made a point in there about water. Water is definitely something that we haven't really focused on as yet in Sustain, and we'd really welcome some you know, some really good proposals looking at how we can deal with water, how we can reduce the energy, and how we can reuse it and use it you know, indefinitely without pollution. Financial business modelling for green steel. A lot of the steel companies are gearing up now for green steel, but nobody really understands what the effect's going to be, technically or economically, really. So studies in that area are obviously very important to help the steel makers and other industries that may come along as well, to make decisions on how they move forward, and, you know, how much they can invest, should invest, and the timing of things. Of course, timing is getting quite close now to our targets, and we need to push forward as fast as we can. Value intensive steel design. So, you know, it says it all in the text box there. Today's products are tomorrow's scrap. We've got to make sure that we don't think of scrap as a waste. We've got to think of it, certainly the circular aspects of it, and how we can bring that forward. We shouldn't really be, you know, wasting or degrading steel as we recycle it, and that's what we do. That's what we do with aluminium and other materials as well. We really need to start looking at how we bring the design of steel-intensive products to deliver the sustainability benefits through the lifetime, that are ready for the circular economy and beyond. And then we've got this final section, which is just any novel decarbonisation recycling project that may produce a step change. There may be something we haven't thought of. There may be an area that we haven't really considered, and we really do encourage potential applicants to think of some of those areas and bring them forward. So next slide, please, Becky. Right, so now I'll pass over to Sarah, who will go through some of the processes involved.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Beck. Okay, so as it says, Sustain is a 7-year project, and we're soon entering our second half, or phase 2 of the project. And as previously mentioned, in the first half, we ran 3 successful feasibility study applications, being UCL, Cardiff and Durham, and this is our second round now. So as we can see, it says we have 3 awards available for 50k, and that's at 80% FEC. So what this means is Sustain will give you £50,000 to run your research project, and your institution will have to provide 12,500 to match that, which is usual practice, as you're probably aware, with funding. Right, so it's open to existing awarded applicants as well. But this is only due to the fact that they have to have a significantly different area of research. So if the original applicants want to apply, they are very welcome, but it has to be a completely different area. And it's open to all UK academics whose institutions are also not currently involved in Sustain, but you have to be eligible for EPSRC funding, which is usual as well. So we're not expecting any problems from that. Next slide, please, Beck. Right, so this slide shows the process. The call opens on the 8th of June, which I think is Wednesday. And I think you have 7 weeks from Friday to apply, so you have plenty of time. And there's a couple of different options. You can apply directly and just submit your application on the 29th of July. But as Euken's explained very nicely in his presentation, and we do strongly recommend that you engage with a 20-minute surgery with Cam or Professor Plato-Pierce to answer your questions and to gain some decent advice for your application. And also we have the Sandpits sessions, which is the 27th of June. And this is for you to discuss with industry and academic experts for feedback and idea iteration. You can engage in either one or the other of these activities and then apply, but as long as you submit your application by the deadline, the 29th of July, and the outcomes and feedback will be announced by late September. So we're in the process of developing a Q&A page, and we will upload that on the website when that's complete. Next slide, please, Beck. Right, so the Sandpits. So we're running a Sandpit event on Zoom on the 27th of June. They're not compulsory to attend, and as previously mentioned, but they will give you the benefit of gaining feedback and questions answered from industrialists and academics to build your relationships with these professionals. And the industrial and academic backing will strengthen your proposal as well. And we hope that the relationships that you do develop within these Sandpits will go on to support your other areas of your future research. So the format of the Sandpits is written briefly there. We're still in the process of developing this because we're not quite sure who's going to attend until the day. We're not quite sure what you want to talk about and who you want to talk about. So that's kind of hanging in the air at the moment, but we will be there to sort that out on the day. So all you need to do is turn up virtually and we will work out the one-to-ones in the meeting rooms when we're all there. So next slide, please, Beck. So there's further opportunity to meet with the industrialists and the representatives and academics to further develop your proposal in alignment to the Sustain objectives and the industrial problems. So it's well worth, I think it's well worth attending and engaging in the Sandpits as much as you can. And next slide, please, Beck. Right, so we have the key dates written down there. And just for you to see, Monday the 6th it opens. Sorry, no, it doesn't. Today's Monday the 6th. Wednesday the 8th it officially opens. We've got a surgery session on the 22nd of June, and we've got the Sandpit on the 27th. And we have a second opportunity for surgery sessions on the 4th of July. Closing dates are the 29th of July. We have, for the evaluation, we have a panel of academics who are not directly linked to Sustain, and that's to maintain fairness and an unbiased opinion on all the applicants as well. And then we have the grants announced and feedback given by late September. Hopefully it will be earlier, but that's what we're aiming for at the moment. And that's it for the process.
We'll do a soft close. So those of you who think that you've seen enough and heard enough and want to go away and have a think, then by all means do that. We'll hang on here for another few minutes if there's anybody else who wants to ask any other questions with a slightly smaller audience. More than happy. But thank you very much for attending. I really do hope that you apply, and I look forward to some exciting proposals coming through.